Hey, hopefully unexpected. Yeah, you're not on your own thinking that this is really hard shit to talk about. I think it's easy for me to understand it when I read it myself and learn about the stuff myself, but then other people have different interpretations of it, and it's good to try to work out some kind of common understanding of what the hell is going on here. Um, I don't, okay, when we talk about subjects and objects, the subjective side is not in the physical reality. The subjective side is the experience. The objective side is the neurons in the brain that we can see and look at externally. Like, you could open up my brain right now and look at all my neurons and stuff doing all their crazy shit, and you wouldn't see any thoughts, though, because thoughts are experiential. I can only experience them inside myself, subjectively. So, the subject, my experience, is not only a manifestation of the physical world, definitely it is in some way correlated to all this organization in my brain. But that's the thing. It's correlated. We have no proof to suggest that it's caused by the physical brain. So we have no proof to say consciousness is caused by the physical brain. We might want to think that if we're, materialistic scientists that want to say that we've solved the problem and that there is no such. I mean, a scientist could easily say, oh, there's no such thing as consciousness, there's no such thing as experience, there is only this objective brain state. And they could say, oh, solve the problem. But, I think that's a little ingenuous. Because obviously there is experience, and whether or not we can tell if it's just my experience or if anybody else actually has internal experience, we all know as individuals, at least, that we all have an internal state of experience. So this whole idea of the solipsism, though, it's sort of, I think that's when you get into this solipsistic trap, I think you're thinking too much, because look at another person's face. If I smile, you feel that smile inside of you, or at least if you are engaged in a conversation with me. We have these neurons. They're called mirror neurons. They're in primates, higher primates as well as humans, and they allow us to, without having to conceptualize it at all, just to immediately mirror the internal states of others just by looking at them. So when we see someone smile, those mirror neurons automatically give us that sensation of happiness inside. So we're not so disconnected. We're not. I don't. Solipsism is it's impossible for me to prove why it's not the case that you're the only one that experiences anything, and I could be a robot. Sure. Um, Ludwig Wittgenstein had a lot to say about this stuff, which, I mean, that's basically my perspective. That's what I'm trying to articulate here. It's just that, if you want to know that you're not the only one with a mind, then just, look at the expressions on someone else's face and let your mirror neurons do their thing, and you will see, wow, there's this underlying level of unity between minds that allows us to connect subjectively, even while it seems like we're these separate objective organisms. Understanding. I happen to think that consciousness isn't something that just happens in human beings, or that just happens in animals, or even that just happens in plants, animals, and human beings. I think consciousness, or consciousness in the sense of an internal experience to go along with the external material manifestation, is present all the way down to the first atoms, maybe even photons. And what that means is, they're not conscious. They don't think. They don't have thoughts. They don't have ideas. That takes a later stage of evolution. But they have some basic prehension, or some basic, I don't want to say experience. It's just they have an internal. Anything that has an outside must have an inside. And that's just the way reality is conceptualize. If you're going to say that that reality is only physical surfaces around what? It's like, there's no such thing as just up. There's up and down, and up makes sense because down is the opposite, and the outside physical world only makes sense because we, as internal, experiential, subjective consciousnesses, can experience it and talk about it and measure it. You talked about measurement, and you said the universe is a huge measuring device, and I don't really know what you mean by that, but I don't think we see with our eyes, our direct sensory impressions are not measurements of anything. We have to add that later once the sensory gets to the perceptive aspect of our more linguistic minds. Then we measure it. And the whole idea of there being like atoms in the world and stuff that make up all the physical reality, that's measurement. That is projecting a human concept onto nature, and nature in itself is not a measurement. There's no measurements in nature until human beings come along and project them onto it. That's why, like in quantum physics, a lot of these physicists are realizing that physics isn't studying some substance that exists in the world. Physics is studying form, and not substance. Form is measurement, shape, pattern. Physics stopped trying to find the basic stuff of the universe. There's no stuff. There's only measurement, and we can be very accurate with our measurements because there's very intricate patterns in all this stuff that appears to be stuff, but that isn't really stuff. As hard as this computer feels to my finger, it's really just a bunch of vibrating energy that is flashing in and out of existence so fast that the flashing in and out of existence of my finger can't pass through it. If I punched it hard enough, then the energy in these atoms will overpower the energy in those, and it will pass through it. This irrational stuff, I don't even understand it, man. Because, and you want a more concrete example? Well, okay, you're trying to talk about seeing an electron with light and how that's impossible because the light interferes with the electron, or it's too big and it won't work. And we don't see electrons. We don't even see atoms. We just measure a reaction that implies that there must be this, this center of energy here hitting the center of energy there, and they react somehow. And we measure the global macrocosmic scale of that, and we infer that there are these separate particles banging into each other. But that's a projection of a human concept or measurement onto something that's really more wave-like or more indeterminate and non-local. So seeing an electron with light, because that's impossible, it's not irrational, it's irrational, because we know why we can't see an electron with light. We know why we can't. Something is irrational when we know, not that we can't know it, because having knowledge about something is tricky. We can't know it empirically. We can't see it in the physical world and run an experiment to prove that it is so, because irrational truths only exist in the mental realm of ideas and in the spiritual realm of experiential connection to all that exists. And you have to understand that I am coming at this from a spiritual perspective, and spirituality can mean so many things, and I don't have a simple definition for what it means to come from a spiritual perspective. It really just means that I can't reduce everything to some objective state of affairs, because I think the objective state of affairs is a human creation. There's nothing objective, and there's nothing subjective. These are just terms in which we understand the world, which you already talked about. When we ask what is the mind and what is subjective experience, it's not neurons. It has nothing to do with neurons. The neurons are the objects, the objective external stuff. The internal subjective experience is nothing. You might be able to call it energy, so it's not like it doesn't exist because it's not energy or matter. It might be energy. The matter are the neurons. The energy is maybe the subjective state. I mean, we could say that maybe. So I got 15 seconds. What else did I want to say? Blah. I guess nothing. Let me know what you think.